Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Baltzell. I'm the statewide salmon and steelhead manager for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'd like to welcome you this morning to our North of Falcon 2 virtual gathering for 2022-23 fisheries planning. This is the next meeting in our series of salmon season planning meetings. Before we get started this morning, and as people are joining us this morning, I'm going to just walk through a little bit of Zoom meeting logistics. For those of you who have joined us in the past, this is a repeat, but just for those of you who are new this morning, you can turn your camera on and off and mute and unmute yourself through the control panel at the bottom. There's a raised hand feature if you want to ask a question or provide a comment, depending on your Zoom version that is on your device. It could be an emotions icon that has a raised hand feature with it. If you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. We just ask that everybody stay muted until we take questions and we call on you for a question or comment. We ask that people be respectful of each other. We ask that there's no personal attacks, insults, or threats today. We're here to listen to you, and we ask that you listen to the things that we're saying as well. Our goal here today is to try to center in on preferred fishing packages to take through the rest of the preseason process. We're going to allow for a balance of speaking time today. The plan for today's meeting, why don't we do next slide, Kirsten? So one more thing, the meeting is being recorded. It's just so everybody's aware of that and will be available on our website. So also for folks' information, there's a ton of information on our website, including this morning's meeting presentation, modeling results, different things associated with the preseason planning process. So folks, please go ahead and check the website for that. The plan for today's meeting, and maybe Kirsten can flip up an agenda there if we have one on the screen. We're going to just do some quick slides this morning, go through some of the forecasts, some of the management objectives for this year for Chinook and Coho, current proposals and modeling that are on the table, and then we're going to do breakout meetings with Puget Sound Recreational Group, which will cover freshwater fisheries as well, a Puget Sound commercial breakout session, and then if there's any folks on the line who wish to discuss coastal fisheries, we'll have some staff available to walk through that with you as well today. Next slide. So just want to walk through really quick for those folks who are new to the process about North of Falcon and what guides us. North of Falcon is a multi-jurisdictional coast-wide process that we use to and participate in with other nations and states to basically set salmon seasons for Alaska, Canada, and the west coast of the United States. All of the things that we're trying to do here are guided by Endangered Species Act constraints, commission policies, Pacific Salmon Treaty obligations, tribal co-management, and then just the resource needs from year to year with escapement levels needed to meet management objectives. Next slide, please. So as I said, North of Falcon is the annual cooperative process to set salmon seasons in Washington. The name refers to the waters north of Oregon's Cape Falcon, which marks the southernmost boundary of Washington's management area for salmon. And as I said, it's one component in a larger salmon setting process amongst many jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So folks may or may not know that our North of Falcon process is actually part of a larger rulemaking process that the department goes through to set these seasons as part of state law. So that kicks off in January with a CR 101 filing. In the middle here is where we're at with the North of Falcon process, where we're taking public comment and crafting seasons. Once we have those seasons agreed to, at the end of the process, we will then work to file our CO 102 document, which is our planned seasons for this year. Folks will have additional time to provide comment and we'll have additional public hearing. There at the end of June, we will wrap it up with hopefully a signature from the director to have those rules in place. Next slide, please. So just want to run through really quick. I wasn't sure if Kirsten, sorry, we didn't rehearse this ahead of time. Is this where I'm kicking it to you, or am I going to work on this slide?
You can go for it, or if you want to kick it over to me, I'm happy to take over.
Perfect. I'll run through these really quick. So each year in March, the Pacific Fishery Management Council sets ocean options for fisheries occurring along the West Coast for Chinook and Coho. The alternatives that you see on the screen here are a comparison of the options for 2022 and the options for as compared to last year in 2021. So we often refer to these as the high, middle, and low options, or alternative 1, 2, and 3, because it doesn't always work out to the high, middle, and low. So on the screen, you see those options for the ocean fisheries occurring in marine areas 1 through 4. And those essentially set the sideboards for us in Puget Sound and in the Columbia River, so they can start their fisheries planning process knowing that these are the sideboards for the ocean fisheries. And with that, I'm going to recognize Dr. Kirsten Simonson to take us through the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm just going to kind of go through a really quick forecast recap. For most of the folks on the line have been attending these meetings all season so far, and so a lot of this is going to be a really brief overview. There is more information posted on the website. This presentation, as well as a bunch of other materials, have been added to the North of Falcon portion of the web page just earlier today. So for anybody who wants more detailed information on the forecast breakdown, that is available. But for the purposes of today and just kind of getting through this so we can get to the conversation, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through everything. So to look at coastal and Columbia River forecast recap for 2022, for coastal Chinook, the natural stocks are up about 8% and hatchery stocks are up about 10% from the most recent 10-year average. Columbia River Chinook are showing improved returns for spring and similar to last year for summer. The lower river hatchery stocks are similar to last year and down about 11% from the most recent 10-year average. Coastal Coho stocks are up about 45% and hatchery stocks are up about 63% from the most recent 10-year average. And Columbia River Coho, very good returns are forecasted for 2022, nearly a million fish. So that's pretty good numbers. Moving into the Puget Sound, just to go kind of through a brief forecast recap. Puget Sound Chinook natural stocks are down about 36% and hatchery stocks are up about 6% from the most recent 10-year average. Puget Sound Coho, natural stocks are up about 29% and hatchery stocks are up about 61% from the most recent 10-year average. And for Puget Sound Chump, the natural stocks are down 61% and hatchery stocks are down 64% from the most recent 10-year average. So you can see with all these good coho returns that are forecasted, what we're seeing is kind of a rebound from those poor returns in 2015 and subsequent poor ocean years in 2016 and 17. So we're kind of seeing that rebound happening right now as we've been tracking that. Moving on to the management objectives for the Ocean and Columbia River management objectives. So you can see some of the key stocks listed here on the left and what the management objective criteria is on the right. For the Columbia River tulies, it's a 38% total ER. For the lower Columbia River natural coho, 23% total ER. Grays Harbor natural coho, an escapement of 35,400. For Queets Natural Coho, we're looking for an escapement between 5,800 and over 14,000. For Ho River Natural Coho, between 2,000 and 5,000 escapement. For Quilly River Natural Coho, looking for between an escapement value of between 6,300 and nearly 16,000. For Coastal Oregon Natural Coho, it's a 15% total ER. And for the Fraser River, the Thompson Coho in Canada, it's a 10% SUS ER. For the Chinook management objectives for Puget Sound, they're listed here. I'm going to kind of save the details for when Dr. Derek Dapp gets into the modeling details in a little bit. But just to kind of highlight a couple of things here, the stocks that are currently highlighted in yellow are ones that the current modeling is not currently meeting the objective. So there's some stocks where we still have some work to do. And again, Derek's going to give a more detailed run through of that in a little bit. But you can see what the management guideline is for all of these stocks, and you can see which ones we still need to do some work on. A couple ones that won't surprise anybody here, Stillaguamish, we're currently not meeting our objective, and Snohomish River is one that we've been keeping an eye on this season as well. For the Coho management objectives for Puget Sound, a couple things that we're keeping an eye on here. The Strait of Juan de Fuca stocks are currently under a rebuilding plan, and that's going to continue for this season. They have not met their objective. Hood Canal Coho are currently considered in overfish status as of the most recent reports. And Snohomish River Coho are currently under a rebuilding plan. They're managed to a minimum escapement target of 55,000, and we are still under that rebuilding plan. So just to kind of give a very brief run through of the proposed recreational fishing seasons, there's going to be a lot more time to talk about these in detail during the recreational breakout in a little while, but just to kind of give a brief overview, the initial 2022-23 Puget Sound Chinook fishery proposal is on the screen in front of you right now. And just to kind of briefly go through some of the changes that have occurred with this fishery since last year, areas 5 and 6, currently no changes. Area 7 would be moving to an August 15th start, and there would be a February winter Chinook season added in. Area 9 has an currently proposed as an August 1 start through September 30th. Area 10, the winter Chinook fishery would be in February only. Area 11 is moving to a June 1 start, and areas 12 and 13 have no changes. For the initial Coho proposal, you can see that in front of your on the screen right now. And again, there's gonna be plenty of time to go through this discussion during the recreational breakout, but just to kind of highlight some of the changes that we're seeing this year for Coho. Area 5 and 6, there's no changes. Also, I did not update the slide, but the modeling was completed yesterday. So we do have more information on the Coho modeling that'll be presented today. So apologies for not updating that bullet point in the beginning, but that has been finalized. So area 5 and 6, there's no change. Area 7, again, that August 15th through September 30th, and that will be a marked selective fishery. For area 9, again, that August 1st start. Area 10, no change. Area 11, moving to that start. For area 12, south of AOC, there's no change. Quilcene Bay will open August 1st, and so August will be Quilcene Bay only. And north of AOC is moving to a September 1st start for the whole area. And for area 13, there's no change. So just some considerations for the 2022 season in general. While forecasts for Puget Sound Chinook and Coho stocks are modestly improved over the recent years, obviously there's always cause for things that we're keeping an eye on. Chinook stocks continue to be depressed relative to their status at listing and are currently designated as in crisis in the State of the Salmon report for 2020. There are low expected returns of natural Chinook to both the Stillaguamish and the Snohomish rivers. As I mentioned before, that those are we're keeping a really close eye on this season. There are low expected returns of natural Coho in South Sound, Hood Canal, and the Strait of Juan de Fuca stocks. So these are all Coho stocks that we're going to be keeping a really close eye on as well. Oops, apologies. There is the potential, though, the bright spot here is there is a potential to have both the Queets and the Snohomish Coho stocks reach rebuilt status. So that's a bit of good news. Chum stocks returning to South Sound and Hood Canal are similar to last year. And finally, there's continued concerns for southern resident killer whales. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Derek Dapp, who's going to go through some of the modeling results in more detail.
Thank you, Dr. Simonson. And if I could, I'm just going to share my screen in a moment. So I'm going to steal that from you here. Hopefully that's appearing on screen now. So I'm going to start off by going through some of our most recent Coho modeling results, and then after that, I'll go into our Chinook modeling results. The modeling materials that I'm intending to present today are available on our public website. I'm hoping that one of our staff can perhaps put a link in the chat for anybody who might not have a link to it, but all these files should be available online. So as we're moving into the Coho modeling, as Mark and Dr. Simonson had mentioned, there is an updated set of Coho model runs from what we'd last looked at if folks were in the public meetings either Monday or in weeks prior. Then we're seeing kind of an updated set of results here. Just to describe what's in these Coho model runs at this point, is these have kind of an updated set of abundances for all stocks in the model, 2022 forecasts that is, as well as updated fisheries for all fisheries along the West Coast, including our initial Puget Sound proposals, both from the state and the tribes. As Mark had kind of highlighted on some earlier slides, one thing that as we're performing the modeling, we're looking at 3 separate options for ocean quotas. And so when we're looking on screen here at these Coho results, we can see that any results that are in the white coloration in the columns are related to the high ocean option run. And just to reiterate, that's a non-treaty quota of 210,000 Coho. When we look at the light gray columns, those are the middle ocean option run, and that represents a non-treaty quota of 185,000 Coho. And then the low ocean option runs are the darker gray. Those represent a non-treaty quota of 160,000 fish. As we're going through this spreadsheet, there's kind of two columns to pay attention to as far as management objectives go. First of all, I would direct our attention to this row that I'm highlighting now. This row is kind of our escapement goal for each individual stock. And then there's another row that we could look at over here, which is our exploitation rate ceiling. I'm kind of just going to hit some of the stocks of concern for Coho, some of the ones that we're paying a little bit more attention to this year. And Kirsten had kind of highlighted some of these already, but maybe starting with Snohomish Wilds, as folks can see, we have an escapement goal there of 55,000 fish. In all three ocean options, we see a range, an escapement ranging from around 40,400 to around 41,000 fish. So we're a little bit under our goal there. I would note that that isn't a hard goal, and we're currently in the process of discussing what an appropriate escapement target is with our co-managers. But just know that that's one that, as we're kind of shaping and crafting fisheries, that we'll be paying a little bit of attention to. Moving down to kind of our next set of stocks. So these are also two stocks that we're going to be paying attention to as we're kind of doing our model runs. Hood Canal Wilds, which are over in these first three columns, as well as the Wanda Fuca, Tribs, Coho. For both of these sets of stocks, we are noticing that in our high ocean option, we're exceeding our objectives. We can see that over here for Hood Canal Wilds in the high ocean option, we're coming up with a total exploitation rate of 45.3% versus a management objective there of 45%. And for JDF, we're also slightly above. We have a management objective there of 10% exploitation rate in the southern US. And currently that rate is coming out at 10.1% in that high ocean option. In both the mid and low ocean options for both of these stocks, we appear to be meeting our objectives. Moving maybe a little bit further to the end. Apologies, just trying to find Fraser stock. I think it's right here. Yep. So the other stock that we're kind of we're keeping a close eye on as we're going through our modeling exercises is the Thompson Run and Fraser Coho. For this stock, we have an objective of 10% in the U.S. fisheries, and once again, much like Hood Canal and JDF, we see in the high ocean option we're above that 10% mark. We're at 10.7%. We come pretty close to that 10% objective in the middle ocean option, but in both the middle and low ocean option, we are below that 10% management objective currently. So I'm sure that we'll do a little bit more exploration of Coho in our breakout, and there'll certainly be a chance to ask any questions. But for right now, I think I will move us on to Chinook so we can look at those modeling results. So the Chinook runs have not been updated since our Monday public meeting. If anybody was in attendance for that meeting, just be aware that these results should be the same. Just to describe a little bit what's in the Chinook modeling currently is much like the Coho, we have the 2022 Puget Sound fisheries updated in here for both the treaty and non-treaty fisheries. We have the ocean fisheries updated, and we have our three ocean options kind of going across the columns on the top here. The one kind of key difference between the Chinook and Coho runs is that in the Chinook runs, we still haven't updated the Canadian abundances. Those are still in the process of being finalized, as well as the coastal Oregon abundances. And then we also haven't updated two sets of Canadian fisheries, the West Coast Vancouver Island Troll and Sport, as well as the Northern British Columbia Troll and Sport. I think that those are in the process of being finalized, and we should have those in the modeling soon. But with what we've got currently, just a reiteration, looking at the high ocean option here on the far left, which is a quota of 65,000 non-treaty for Chinook. middle ocean option, which is 60,000 non-treaty for Chinook, and then our low ocean option, which is 53,000 non-treaty for Chinook. As we're looking at this graphic here, we can look at columns B and C, and these are our management objectives for the year. So we see, for example, if we look at Nooksack Springs, we see we have a management objective here of in a southern U.S. exploitation rate of 10.9%. And we can look kind of across our range of runs here at the southern U.S. exploitation rate coming out of each of the 3 ocean options. And we can see, for example, in Nooksack Springs that we are exceeding that 10.9% objective currently in all ocean options. Moving on to kind of some of the other stocks that we're paying attention to for Chinook, Skagit, Summer Falls. This is a stock where we're right on the cusp of being above or below a low abundance threshold. It's particularly for this SOC subpopulation of the stock, where we have an escapement goal of 400 fish, and you can see in our set of model runs we're falling just below that objective of 400 fish escaping. If we're above that 400 fish, we have a management objective of 52% total exploitation rate. However, since we are currently below in all of our options, we're managing to a 15% southern U.S. exploitation rate. And folks would probably note that we are above that 15% southern U.S. exploitation rate in all 3 ocean options. I'll get back to Stillaguamish and Snohomish in just a minute, but maybe if I skip ahead to some of the mid-sound stocks. For Lake Washington, Green, Puyallup, and for all of those stocks, we have a management objective of 15% in the pre-terminal southern U.S. area. And we see that in our high ocean option, we're currently exceeding that objective. For Nisqually, we're also exceeding our objective of 47% total in all 3 ocean options. So that's a stock that we're going to be paying attention to, as well as Skokomish, where we have a 50% total exploitation rate objective, and we're exceeding in all 3 ocean options. One last stock before I get back to Stillaguamish and Snohomish is the Lower Columbia Natural Toolies, kind of one of the main driving stocks out for our ocean fisheries. We do see that currently we have a 38% total exploitation rate management objective for that stock. And we do see currently in our high ocean option and in our middle ocean option, we are exceeding that objective at 38.7 and 40.2% respectively. Moving back to Snohomish first, perhaps. Snohomish is really a stock of concern that we're monitoring and paying attention to as we're shaping fisheries this year. Snohomish Chinook are below what we call the lower bound threshold as far as their abundance goes. And that's particularly for the Skycomish subpopulation of the stock. When we do fall below that lower bound threshold for a particular subcomponent of the stock on Snohomish, we go into this phase where we have to discuss with our co-managers what an appropriate management objective is for the management year. So that's where we're at with Snohomish. As we're shaping fisheries, we're definitely looking at our impacts there. For Stillaguamish, Stillaguamish has been kind of one of our primary constrainers to sport fisheries and the non-treaty fisheries over the past several years. We see that in our first set of model runs where we have a 9% unmarked SUS objective and a 14% marked SUS objective. We see in our sets of model runs that we're currently exceeding both of those management objectives across all 3 ocean options. When we get into the Puget Sound breakout room, the rec breakout, we will definitely be doing a much deeper exploration of Chinook, running in different modeling scenarios, taking a much better look at Stillaguamish, Snohomish, Nisqually, Skokomish, some of the stocks that we're kind of concerned about this year. But for now, I might just pause and see if there are any questions related to the modeling at this time.
And I see we have a hand from Shannon. Shannon, I have unmuted you.
Yeah, good morning. So I just, the question I have is related to Kirsten's presentation. In particular, the discussion on a February blackmouth fishery in Area 7. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that's currently in the initial proposal right now.
Okay, so how many of those fish were you planning on taking in that winter fishery?
I think Derek could probably answer that better than me.
Give me just 1 second, Shannon. I'm just going to confirm the exact number there. I believe it's around 900 fish for that fishery is what we've got modeled currently.
Well, I guess my comment here is I've never been a big fan of winter blackmouth fishery. You're taking juveniles that come straight out of the rivers to feed on the banks there, Area 7. And as you well know, we've got problems in the Snohomish, we got problems in the Stillaguamish, and certainly we have problems in the earlies to the Nooksack, South Fork in particular. So I think you guys better have some continued discussions on that proposed winter fishery. Thanks.
And just to confirm the exact number that's currently in the modeling, Shannon, it's 892.
Yeah. I think you just should let those go to ocean. Thank you.
And it looks like that was our last hand for right now.
Derek, was there further modeling you were going to run through with folks, or are we headed for breakouts?
I think now would be a good time to head to the breakout rooms, Mark. As I mentioned, we'll definitely do a much deeper exploration of modeling in the Puget Sound Rec breakout room if folks are interested in that. But for now, I think that's good for the main session.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek and Kirsten. So just up on the screen here, folks will see we have some upcoming meetings. First of all, after today's meeting will be a Columbia River and Ocean Fishery North of Falcon meeting on Friday. Please make sure you're registering on the website for that one. The next Tuesday and Wednesday successively, we will have a Willapa Bay fisheries discussion on Tuesday the 5th, followed by a Grays Harbor fisheries discussion on April the 6th on Wednesday. And then starting on Thursday of next week, there will be the final week of Pacific Fishery Management Council meetings this year taking place in SeaTac. The meetings are virtual. There will be no in-person testimony or meetings at there. So the department is planning on holding daily meetings. I know right now on the website, it says we will have daily meetings starting at 8. We're going to update that today to start at 8:15 that week of the 7th through the 13th, just to allow a break between, we normally have a morning delegation meeting for the Washington delegation of the Pacific Fishery Management Council meetings. We want to allow just a little bit of space for the room to clear before we hop into a little more Puget Sound focused discussion during that last week. But we will be able to cover a broad variety of topics in that morning meeting from coastal fisheries to Columbia River as well as Puget Sound. So feel free to log in during that week. I see we do have a hand up. Leah, do you want to recognize that person?
And it looks like your hand is from Henri. I have allowed you to unmute, or actually I've unmuted you.
Yeah, thanks. I just was wondering if you guys could quickly respond to the comment about the winter blackmouth. What is the WDFW program that was established by the legislature for purposes of late release Chinook salmon and that were intended for recreational winter catch? Because, you know, when I hear objections to the winter blackmouth season, it seems like quite often it comes from people with a commercial interest who, you know, want to net those fish either in the ocean or in the river. But it's my understanding that, you know, there is a program where fish are, you know, developed for winter recreational fishing. Any comments on that?
So I'd love to walk through that one really quick. So that legislation, I believe, was started in the 90s. And it was introduced, as you said, to promote winter Chinook fishing opportunity. At that time, when the program was implemented, the agency was raising quite a few yearling Chinook salmon, which were found to residualize a little bit more, contributing to that winter fishery opportunity. That program continued for a long while until around the mid 2000s. There was an audit, a report from the state auditor that basically identified that that program was not really that efficient, that the cost per fish raised for those yearling programs and what the department was seeing in terms of survival was completely unacceptable. That essentially we were throwing money away raising those fish as blackmouth. So currently the department has 3 yearling programs throughout Puget Sound. We've changed that a little bit, and the legislation has changed as well. In the mid 2000s, the legislation was changed to essentially be a recreational enhancement fund rather than specifically focused at blackmouth. So that there's an advisory committee that you're well aware of that it has oversight on and works with the department on how those funds are spent. A majority of those funds currently go to promote hatchery programs, which much benefit recreational salmon fishing throughout Puget Sound and the coast. So that's kind of just a brief history and to where that program is to date.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't aware of that the yearling releases was scaled back that much. Thank you.
Yeah, currently we have yearling releases coming out of Hoodsport, out of the Wallace Hatchery, and out of, there's one I'm missing. It's on the Green River, I think. Thank you. Todd has his hand up. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about the fish that normally get released from the hatcheries and go out and spend some time in Puget Sound before they migrate. What are the size of the fish there? I haven't fished Area 7 before, and I'm just curious, am I catching any of those fish when it was open? I think they'd be smaller than the typical blackmouth, right? They'd spend a year or 2 out there swimming around. They get bigger than the fish that are actually going to migrate.
So I don't know if I have a specific answer to your question, Todd, but I think what I would say is that it really depends on marine area and season, and you know, there's so much variability Puget Sound wide about where the you know, a majority of juveniles are and at what size. I would say if we're looking back at data, and I see Dr. Dapp raised his hand, so I'll stop talking here in a second. I think what we've seen, especially in Area 7, is that a majority of the fish that historically that folks have caught and retained in the winter fisheries in Area 9, there's much less, I guess, sublegal encounters in Area 7 as other marine areas that have quite a high number of sublegal encounters towards blackmouth. So maybe I'll stop and let Derek chime in on that one as well.
I don't think I have too much to add, Mark. You were correct there. We had looked at kind of, as we were considering seasons, we had looked at kind of the sublegal to legal ratios that we were encountering in Marine Area 7 based off the sampling. And we did note out of all of the potential blackmouth seasons in Puget Sound across all areas, the lowest encounter rate of sublegals to legals was in Marine Area 7 in the winter, at least historically based off the sampling.
Okay, yeah, that's been my experience as well. So I just want to know if I caught one that was small, when I'd be in trouble. Like, oh, I just caught one that's going to go out to open ocean. Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. Alex has his hand up. Go ahead, Alex.
Of those approximately 900 fish that are going to be allocated for the February blackmouth proposed season, where would we sit at on a sublegal encounter rate or a non-marked encounter rate? Do we have any numbers on like where our thresholds would be on our encounters?
Stand by, Alex, one moment.
So Alex, I'm wondering if we can get that and get
Yeah,
it
I
to
think
you
so
in the,
too.
in the
Yeah.
sport breakout.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking that, but we kind of got down
That's
this
all-
black.
that's all right.
Yeah. So, I mean, unless anyone else really wants to know, I mean, Derek, we can definitely go over that in the breakout room.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. So, folks, I think this is where we're going to head to our breakout rooms for today. So we'll have a Puget Sound recreational breakout room, a commercial, Puget Sound commercial breakout room, and then a coastal fishery breakout room. When you signed up today, you should have registered for one of those breakout rooms. Staff will be available in each of them. We'll probably allow just a few minutes there at the beginning to allow everybody to get into the room. But thanks for being here today and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, people will start to join breakout rooms. And as they go, if you've noticed you have not been in one, you can raise your hand and I have enabled it so everybody can unmute themselves now.